What's up, Falcon Nation? It's your boy, Let Us Pray. I hope you're having a blessed and a prosperous day. Man, I'm here with the press conference reaction. Arthur Blank and Rich McKay just got finished not too long ago, maybe 15, 20 minutes ago. Answered a lot of tough questions about the firing of Arthur Smith and what's going to go into the search and selection of the next head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Man, there were so many great questions asked. I had to take some notes. So I just want to give you my reaction to some of the questions and some of the answers. All right? Real quick, take a minute. Hit that subscribe button for your boy. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers and more, but I got to get to 500 first so I can do the fun stuff that I want to do on this channel. So take a moment, hit that subscribe, and share this with your friend group, your family, and your fellow Falcon fans. All right, now that we got that going, let's get into the press conference. If you don't know, 12:02 a.m. First thing when it hit Monday morning, Arthur Smith was fired. Okay, was released anyway that he was fired. So when asked about the firing, Arthur Blank says, yes, firing somebody is it's tough. You have to separate the personal feelings from what's best in business, and in this case, what's best for the Atlanta Falcons. I know there are several fans who feel like Arthur Blank allowed his personal feelings to get in the way of what's best for the franchise in the past. Maybe holding on to some coaches a little bit too long. Mike Smith. Dan Quinn. You know what I'm saying? Some of those guys. But this time around, well, I don't want to spoil. So, yeah. Can't let personal feelings get in the way of what's doing best for the team. So I was enjoying hearing that because I'm like, right on, bro. Right on. Arthur Blank also said change is being made because the Falcons needed to be more competitive. And he would like them to be more competitive in the upcoming year, 2024. Okay? Arthur Smith's teams, 7-10 the last 3 seasons. That's a combined record of 21-30. And it's what? The easiest schedule in the league this year. The easiest schedule. And you still went 7-10. So that means the team got worse. Okay, let me keep going. When asked when the decision was made, Arthur Blank says, I guess it was he and Rich McKay. He didn't really state if it was the two of them, but I believe it was. Met with Arthur Smith, and they had a meeting for a few hours last night after the game, after they got back from New Orleans after the loss. And they spoke and they listened to Arthur Smith. They say he was well prepared. I don't know what he prepared. I don't know if he had a what did he have, man? He had a little presentation for him. We call them thing. A little clicker. Why is it escaping me right now? I don't even know what that thing's called, man. A little presentation with the slides. You know what I'm talking about. I don't know if he had one of them set up. PowerPoint. I don't know what he had, but apparently he had something that he, wanted to tell them, and apparently it wasn't enough to keep his job. So, but they say he was very well prepared, and it was a productive discussion. Okay. Arthur Blank says the coaching search will be led by himself and Rich McKay once again. So initially he did not mention Terry Fontenot. He says they're going to take the lead, Blank and McKay. But later down the line, uh, it was asked, "Where's Terry Fontenot at? Why is he not here? Um, is he even still the GM? This, that, and the other." And Arthur Blank says, "Hey, there's a lot going on. Basically, we just fired our coach. So, his whole staff is kind of scrambling. They don't know what they need to do. Do they need to make arrangements to leave too? So there's a lot of people wondering what their futures are with the Atlanta Falcons. So they said Terry Fontenot was back at Flowery Branch, at the headquarters, um, making sure he takes care of everyone. Because there's many people employed by the Atlanta Falcons, and probably got a lot of staff members, a lot of families that are going to be relocating as a result of the firing of Arthur Smith. So it made sense. So he did give his vote of confidence for Terry Fontenot. He said he will be the GM going forward, definitely, and he actually will be heavily involved in the coaching search. Okay, says him and his personnel staff will be involved. Their input, yes, will be greatly appreciated. When asked about the locker room, Arthur Blank says he never thought that Coach Smith lost the locker room this season. It says all the players spoke very highly of him, but I can think of one that wasn't a fan. Cordero Patterson. That joker. So I kind of disagree with that, right? The team laid an egg in the second half last night of that game. The Saints poured on. The team looked like they gave up in the second half to me. Looked like they just lost hope. And maybe they just knew it was over at that point. Not just the game, but the whole Arthur Smith experience. They might have known it was going to be a wrap. But, I'm not in the locker room. I can just say what I observed from the outside looking in. All right. When asked, okay, this was a question that I actually really liked. It was asked, hey, no offense, you guys are heading up the coaching search again, huh? Why aren't different people responsible for the coaching search? Why Rich McKay and Arthur Blank again? You guys clearly got it wrong with Arthur Smith. Not to say that Dan Quinn was horrible his whole time as a Falcon fan, because he did get us to the Super Bowl, but Mike Smith, he only got us so far, right? Then even before that, we ain't gonna mention that dude's name. Jim Moore Jr., right? I think Jim Moore Jr. would have been a great coach for the Falcons. He made a bad mistake and went on that radio show and said he loved to coach the Seattle Seahawks, I think it was, because his dad used to coach there, and he was gone after that. I don't think he was saying he wanted to leave at all, but yeah. Anyway. But yeah, you've chosen these coaches, and we don't have a Super Bowl yet. So what makes you think that you guys, being in charge again, know what it takes to select a Super Bowl winning coach? Because that's the goal, right? If it's the goal for this franchise to win a Super Bowl, and you guys have not yet selected a Super Bowl coach. Arthur Blank, I believe, he said he's been owner of the Falcons since 2001. So for 22 years, right? Hasn't found that Super Bowl coach yet. You think he might want to step back from the hiring process? Uh, he said no. He said, and I quote, "There's nothing wrong with the picking of the head coaches. Nothing wrong. Don't be telling me I don't know what to do." Said when he got the job, he was told by former NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue that the Falcons never had a back-to-back winning season. And that was accurate. And since Arthur Blank has been the owner of the Falcons, Falcons had 5 winning seasons in a row with Mike Smith, I believe it was. And even got, like I said, got to the Super Bowl with Dan Quinn. So, and went to the playoffs the next year. So, I mean, he has a point. You know, there's been some success with the Falcons. But, again, I say, what is the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is to win the Super Bowl. Not just to have winning seasons, not just to make the playoffs, and not just appear in the Super Bowl. All right? He also went on to say that Coach Arthur Smith, was not a bad selection. Okay? Covering his tracks. Why are you firing him then? Why are you firing him, bro? If he wasn't bad. All right, let me stop. Doesn't know why his offensive success with the Titans didn't translate to Atlanta. I can tell you why. Because we didn't have Derrick Henry. You was handing the ball off to Derrick Henry. Okay, let me get back. Let's see. When asked when was the decision made to fire Arthur Smith? Oh no, did I lose my? Oh, here we go. He says decision wasn't made. He didn't make an emotional decision, didn't make a rash decision, snap decision. Point out that the record against losing teams was abysmal. That really bothered him. He scrunched up his face when he said it. He looked at the record against losing teams and winning teams. He was also asked a lot about why Terry Fontenot doesn't have the power to select his own coach, right? And Blank kind of deflected on that one. He didn't really want to answer why he's so heavily in. Basically, they're asking Blank, why are you not allowing your GM to select his own head coach? Because other teams do it that way. Basically asking Blank, why is he so heavily involved in the selection of the coach? And he didn't seem to like that question much. To be honest with you. He answered it, but I thought he deflected on that answer. You know, he answered without answering. So he said in that the GM and the coach both report to Rich McKay. Okay? So then a reporter came and doubled back and was like, well, a couple years back, you told us Rich McKay wasn't involved in the day-to-day operations of the Atlanta Falcons. So now you're telling me that the head coach and the GM, who are heavily involved in the day-to-day operations, both report to the guy who's not involved in the day-to-day operations of the franchise? How does that work? And how does that benefit the franchise? So Rich McKay came in with damage control, and he basically said, well, I'm there for support, and I'm there with resources, with whatever they need. You know, says he meets with them twice a week, meets with the GM, meet with the coaches, and they basically give their vision for, where they feel the franchise is going, and if he can offer any, support, resources, or any wisdom regarding such conversations, he will. But he's not there to tell them what to do. They're there to bounce their ideas off of him, if that makes sense. He doesn't go into a meeting with He's basically saying he doesn't go into a meeting telling them what they need to do. They bring ideas, problems, or issues to him, and he can then address them or help them or find a way to facilitate or give words of wisdom. Okay. So, I mean, it sounds good, but I don't know. What the reporter said really made sense to me. I mean, what does this guy really do? What does he really do? What does he really do? Right? Okay. He said Thomas Dimitroff and Dan Quinn had the same shared relationship as Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot. Basically, 50-50 say. Smith, of course, runs the team. GM, Terry Fontenot's in charge of the personnel decisions. But, they said Smith also had say into, what players he could have on said team. So, but they both report to Rich McKay, the CEO of the Falcons. In other organizations, the coach reports to the GM. So Arthur Smith would report to Terry Fontenot, but that's not the way it's set up in Atlanta. Okay. There's a question about Desmond Ridder. And quarterbacks. I thought this was a good question. Arthur Blank said there was never a discussion, which proved to be false. Okay? Because this was brought up later. This proved to be false. It was brought up later. Never a discussion about another quarterback in the building, in the franchise. Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke were the guys that they brought to him, and they were on board because Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith identified Ridder as someone that could help the team win. Arthur Blank went on to say that this year the quarterback position had a deficiency, but he feels the quarterback, the individual, Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke, cannot be solely responsible. He feels it has a lot to do with scheme, play calling, coaching, or lack thereof that make a difference between whether your quarterback is successful or not. And I agree with that somewhat. Young players come in with skills, but they need to be polished by coaches. I agree. Question was asked, Arthur Blank, why have you never hired an NFL head coach with NFL head coaching experience? That was a darn good question. And then a follow-up question to that was, will you put more weight into searching for candidates with head coaching experience in the NFL this time around? Basically, he kind of danced around that question, but said, no. Said there are a lot of variables. Definitely said finding a coach with head coaching experience would be great. That fit, where this franchise is going, but also said they want to cast a wide net and don't want to limit themselves, to just looking for, former NFL head coaches. So this is the one that contradicted what Arthur Blank said about not talking about another quarterback. The question was asked, was it a mistake not to pursue Lamar Jackson last season? I like this question. Arthur Blank said, no. It would have prevented the team from pursuing other players during free agency, and he preferred that the team had enough cap space to sign players to have overall better team. Rich McKay comes right behind Arthur Blank and says the discussion was had. So you did talk about getting another quarterback instead of Desmond Ridder. So you did. But he says since Lamar Jackson was a restricted free agent, which means any deal that he signed with another team could be matched by the Ravens if they choose so. He felt like it was a risky play, and they decided not to pursue Lamar Jackson. Okay. Then the question was asked, well, what about when you had Matt Ryan and you were supposedly all in on going to get Deshaun Watson? You were one of the top 3 teams, if I remember correctly. Fact check me, but I believe we actually came down to the last 2. I believe it was between the Falcons and the Browns. And it seemed to me like the Falcons were going to win the lottery until the Browns came in with that 250-something million guaranteed offer. And then Falcons were like, oh, no. Y'all crazy. We ain't about to do that. Y'all can have them. So Rich McKay says, yeah, we thought about getting Deshaun Watson, but at some point we decided that Watson was a bad idea. And I'm sure it was around that time where he got offered $250-something million by the Cleveland Browns that you said, this is a bad idea. We're not going to match that or get anywhere close to that, right? Then this is when I saw Arthur Blank get offended. A reporter asked, well, do you think the hiring of the coach at this point is just a crapshoot? In other words, do you know what you're doing, Arthur Blank? Do you know what you're doing, Rich McKay? Arthur Blank immediately said, it's not a crapshoot. Dan Quinn wasn't a crapshoot. Mike Smith wasn't a crapshoot. Arthur Smith wasn't a crapshoot. Basically saying, hey, let's gamble on this guy. What type of data are you guys gathering? Basically, the reporter's question is, what type of data are you gathering so that ensures you these candidates will be good for the team? Because it just seems like, especially the Arthur Smith one, he's just a bad fit. Just a bad fit. For so many reasons. His personality was kind of funky. He didn't seem like he enjoyed being asked questions by the media. You see him on game day, he's not talking to nobody. He's not interacting with the players. He isolates himself on the sideline. Seemed like he thought he was smarter than everybody else. Hated to take responsibility when things didn't work. Always made excuses. Always talked about the variables. Until the end of the day, he had to say, hey, it was my responsibility. But yeah, what are you guys out there just gambling when you picking these dudes? What type of rubric do you have for coaching selection? So he says when you hire a coach, it can be, the future can be measured a bit, but you cannot account for all the factors that come into play once a coach is hired. He says finding a coach and building a team takes time, takes patience. Immediate results are rare, and you cannot make impulse decisions if you don't get those immediate results. Okay. Another question, follows up with the coaching search. The Arthur Blank and Rich McKay duo, do or have you self-scouted yourselves after these coaching failures, right? After the recent history of poor coaching candidates, how can the fans have confidence that this is just not going to be the same old song. Gonna have another guy in here for another 3 years and then give him the boot. How can we have hope that this time around will be different? Arthur Blank said that's a fair question. But he says there are many variables. Does that sound familiar? That's Arthur Smith right there. There are many variables to selecting the right candidate. Okay? And you cannot, once again, you cannot account for what's going to happen specifically after being hired. There's too many variables to get a for sure coach. And I think I'm almost done. So he also says that, look, man, I haven't picked a lot of bad coaches. This team has had a lot of success since I've been an owner. Kind of, you want to get that rooster on, poke his chest out a little bit. Says we have 5 winning seasons in a row. Never been done in Falcons history before I got here. Never even had a back-to-back season. I talked about that earlier with winning. Had 5 winning seasons in a row. Super Bowl appearance, right? Had 1 Super Bowl appearance previous to Arthur Blank's tenure as owner. MVP and Matt Ryan. I mean, he's had some success as the owner, but not the ultimate pinnacle of what we would like to see, right? See that what right there? See what I say, Atlanta, and you can't see the Falcons right there, but you see that Falcon? That we want that trophy to sit right there. We want a trophy right there. To me, you ain't done nothing. If you ain't won no trophy, you ain't done nothing. All right, let me get back. He was asked, "Are you disappointed, or was this the most disappointed you've been in a season as the Atlanta Falcons head coach?" He gonna talk about a guy. He refused to talk about a guy, or Rich McKay did anyway. And I don't say his name either, just because just the thought of him irritates me. But very disappointed, and then obviously the Super Bowl, very disappointed, getting that close and not winning. So he says this might not be the most disappointed he's been, but he definitely felt like the team underachieved by a large margin compared to what he thought the team would achieve this season. Blank says he doesn't think that the fans have lost faith in the team or front office's ability to produce a winner. Okay? Have the fans lost faith in you, Arthur Blank? I'm gonna have to say some of them, yeah. Because I know some Falcon fans that be like, I don't even watch them no more. You still watch them? And I be like, yeah, I do. They're my boys. But some of them then wrote you off a long time ago. Like, after the Super Bowl, 2 years after the Super Bowl, it was out, bro. So, yeah, I know there are some fans that have lost faith in not necessarily Arthur Blank, but in the Falcons organization as a whole. There are definitely fans out there that have lost. They lost hope, which proceeded to make them lose faith. Already talked about Rich McKay's meetings with the coach and GM. Great question by another reporter, and this is one of my last ones. Will the team's inability to find a quarterback negatively affect the coaching search in this process? So basically, will the teams that have a favorable quarterback think about maybe like the Los Angeles Chargers, right? They have Justin Herbert. You know, he's solid. He's a solid quarterback. Um, would a coach choose that job over the Falcons just because there's a QB that's stable, right? Or like Arthur Blank, when his response was, well, it sounds like Desmond Ritter's out of there. I mean, he says, or coach could look at our situation and see, hey, I, I can get a guy through the draft, I can get a guy through a trade, or I can get a guy through free agency to pair up with him almost like a spouse or a partner, and I can mold this team the way I want to. He thinks that will be attractive to head coaches as well. So I tend to agree with that too. I mean, unless you got like a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback already in place, I think most head coaches would want to get their guy that they would have a vision for and build with that guy. When asked what specifically could Arthur Smith have had done, what could Arthur Smith had done to keep his job? And then Blank said, well, there wasn't really one thing that caused him to get fired. He said there are a variety of things. There are numerous factors that went into the evaluation of Arthur Smith's firing. He says, and this is my last thing before I get up out of here, he says he has the responsibility as the owner to the fans and the organization to put hold on. Can't even read my own notes. He says he has the responsibility as an owner and to the fans and to the organization to put the best product out there on the field, basically. So if that means you got to get rid of the coach, that means you got to get rid of the coach. And I appreciate him saying that because I know some people are kind of rough on Arthur Smith. I can be one of them. Arthur Blank. I could be one of them, but I appreciate him saying, his responsibility to the fans is to make sure that we have a winner. That's all we want is a winner. He also went on to say that he feels at peace with his decision to fire Arthur Smith and to move forward. So hopefully I didn't bore you too much. Oh my God, it was 30 minutes. But yeah, that press conference, trust me, it was probably 2 hours or more. So this is just a summary. If you have any comments or questions, hit me up in the comment section. I'm always willing to dialogue with you guys. Thank you guys for coming through. As always, it's your boy, Let Us Pray. Hope you have a blessed and a prosperous day. And remember, Falcon fans, keep your head up, man. Our best football is ahead of us. Peace, and I'm out.